Secretary, great to have you back on the show. I got a lot of new stuff I want to get into with you, but most important, you've got a new PAC you've announced. Champion American Values PAC, CAVPAC. Tell me about it.
Good morning, Alex. Great to be back with you as well. Yes, I've begun my efforts already to make sure that we build out a team so that we can help conservative candidates, crush their adversaries in November of 2022, not just taking back the House and the Senate, but state legislators, city councils all across America. We're going to be working in CAVPAC. It's designed to do that. It comes from the fact that I was a young soldier once in the cavalry. When we were in the Cav, we rode to the sound of the guns. We were the first to the fight, and CAVPAC's going to do the same thing all across America. We've done dozens of events. We have dozens more scheduled ahead of us where we're going to go out and talk about the things that matter to the American people, the American worker, and get them to the polls and make sure we win in November of 22 all across America.
So what do you see as that slate of issues that is going to really resonate with people right now?
It's the things here at home. I spent these last 4 years as CIA director and Secretary of State. We did good work. The Trump administration secured American freedom. You can see the differences with President Biden overseas this past week. The weakness is a stark contrast to the way that we handle ourselves across the world. But the issues that are in front of us, the woke nature on our campuses scares the heck out of me. The next generation raised to think that anti-racism is at the core of what America is, that we have a racist founding, that the Green New Deal is going to save America. These ideas that we now have infiltrating the next generation of Americans and American leaders is something that we've got to address. If you cancel the voices that reflect our founders' ideas, the things that made America the most exceptional nation in the world, no amount of work anywhere in the world will save America from what our founders knew could ultimately bring the republic down.
Now, one of the challenges I've been finding as a broadcaster and speaking to a largely conservative grassroots audience over the last 6 months or so is a level of demoralization. It's not universal by any means, but there are a number of people out there, a substantial number of people out there who are just over it right now politically after the 2020 election. And this is a struggle, but to get people motivated and jacked up to go to the polls in 2022. What's your message for that group of people?
Well, it's two things. One, I've seen some of that too, but mostly what I've seen, I was in Nebraska, I was in Texas, I was in Iowa, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, all in the last few weeks. I saw an awful lot of energy out there. So you may be right. I think there are some folks who saw November 20 and said, I've had it. I see a lot of folks who say, I saw 20 and I'm not letting that happen again. We're not going to let HR 1 pass. We're going to go crush this in 2 years. For those who say they're behind it, just watch what's going on. You can't stand by. Those who sit on the sidelines and say, there's no difference between these folks. I think what you've seen in the first 140 or 145 days of this administration proves that to be a lie. There's an enormous difference. And those of us who were in the administration, who worked so hard for 4 years to deliver an economy that had more jobs than applicants, to deliver freedom all across America, we need those folks who were engaged in 16 and in 18 and in 20. We need them to come back in 2022 and then ultimately in 2024 when we've got to win the White House back. And when we do, we'll put America back on the right course and we'll get it in a direction that we can protect it and make it great again.
So contrast what America will look like after 2022 elections if the Republicans can win back the House and the Senate.
It's a great question because, one of the things that demoralizes people is they see things like HR 1. They see $6 trillion in spending proposed. They see these things being proposed by the left, the progressives, and the other side has the votes to win. If we're successful in 2022, it will be much like 2010. I was elected to Congress the first time in 2010 when we threw Nancy Pelosi out. She was the Speaker of the House, and on January of 2011, after those elections in 2010, she was no longer. We've got to get to that place. It will stop significant pieces of the left's agenda. That's what it's all about. You have to win these elections. We've got to go take back state legislatures and governorships. We saw what happened with ballots and ballot laws in the run-up to the 20 elections.
Yes.
We've got to control those legislatures. It's important. Whether it's a city council or county commission, we've got to go win those places because they matter so much to the things that we all care about, our families, the ability to practice our faith, all the things that the left is attacking.
Again, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is my guest at Mike Pompeo on Twitter. Where do people go if they want to get involved in CAVPAC?
CAVPAC.com, simplest place to go. Our website is up. take a look at it. We have already helped 7 members of Congress raise significant amounts of money and grow their grassroots campaigns in places that these, Alex. These are districts that are 50-50. They're tough races for conservative Republicans. We have to win in those places. We can. We need people to get excited, and CAVPAC is the organization that I'm going to lead. It's going to help us do that.
Let's get into some of the topics in the news right now. Joe Biden is going to be meeting with Vladimir Putin today. Do you have any expectations for the meeting? What should we be expecting as citizens? Is anything going to come of these things? I assume the media will congratulate Biden for a job well done, regardless of what happens.
Yes, that's almost certainly, Alex, the outcome in the mainstream media and the CNNs and the Washington Post of the world. They'll say, look at the stark contrast between him and from President Trump. And they'll be right about that. There'll be a stark contrast. When we worked with our adversaries around the world, we made clear what America cared about. We found places to work together. We were unafraid to talk about America being first as our agenda. And I think we'll see something different. I think we'll see a weak president with a strong Vladimir Putin. And he will take advantage of that. I don't know whether it'll be something like they did in Crimea when President Biden was vice president, when they took a fifth of Ukraine. I don't know if it'll be more cyber attacks like they did on President Biden's watch, when they shut down energy traveling across the East Coast, made gas lines the longest since Jimmy Carter. I don't know which of those things, but I suspect what we'll see is a president who's not prepared to confront the malign activity of Vladimir Putin and to work with him in places where we can cooperate.
Let's turn focus to China, and I'm going to ask you about the evolution of the lab leak theory. But before I do, regardless of if it came from the lab or from the pangolin, or the pangolin and then the pangolin got into the lab, and then I don't know, maybe there's some sort of genius pangolin out there who unleashed the pandemic. Whatever it is, it's China's fault.
Alex.
Yeah, it's China's fault, and they should be held accountable. How do you hold China accountable? Theoretically, I'm very skeptical Biden will do anything about it, but in a world where we had a responsible American government that would hold China accountable, what does that look like to you?
So here's the theory of the case. You've got it exactly right. There are still unanswered questions. I'm confident that we will conclude that this came from the virology lab. But put that aside, we know enough today to know that the Chinese Communist Party allowed this virus to escape from Wuhan. They allowed folks to travel to Milan and outside of Hubei province and foisted this virus that killed 3 million people around the world upon us all, and continue to cover it up to this day. That is enough. That level of malfeasance is enough. What are the kinds of things we can do? We left the World Health Organization. What a joke to sit beside them at a meeting and have them pretend to be part of the global effort to end pandemics when in fact they were the providers of the pandemic and covered it up. So first thing you should do is you should get out of the WHO and demand that the world build out a system to prevent this from happening again that doesn't include the arsonist who is setting all the fires. Second, we know the decision makers inside of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, who continue to cover this up. We should do everything we can to make sure their kids don't go to our schools and their spouses don't shop in America. All simple things, but I assure you, those Chinese leaders want their families to be here in the United States. We should deny them that. We should impose enormous costs on the local leaders who permitted this to happen. And then we should also demand that the world join together and impose harsh trade costs on the Chinese until they permit us to conduct the research needed to figure out who patient zero was and to make sure that this lab is fixed. You know, Alex, we shouldn't forget this lab's still up and running. There's no increased safety measures that I'm aware of. I'm sure they're still conducting viral research, probably gain-of-function research inside this lab, making these viruses more lethal and more transmissible. This risk is not gone. This is a serious and urgent matter. We have to confront it in a way that reflects that.
Let's talk about the lab leak theory. This is a theory that was advanced, it seems, only by the smartest people on the right last year, and yet it was entirely rejected. In fact, if you wanted to express even the possibility that this could be the case, you were liable to either get censored or outright thrown off of social media. You're vindicated on this, which I'm sure is bittersweet, probably more on the bitter side to you, Secretary. Talk to me about this.
Well, it's not about me. We began to see the evidence of this as early as spring of last year, so over a year ago. We began to talk about it publicly, the fact that every time we turned a rock over with respect to what happened, and it's true, there were fewer rocks than there should have been because the Chinese continue to cover it up. but every rock we turned over suggested that the wet market theory didn't hold up, and that it was much more likely that the research that was going on in this laboratory had a leak from an unsafe laboratory. Since that time, since spring of 2020, I think I talked about this in the end of April, the beginning of May of that year. So did Senator Cotton. President did as well. Every piece of evidence that has turned up since then has indicated that that was right. That has huge ramifications. If this was something that the Chinese were working on, and if it was in any way potentially connected to the military work that they were doing at that site, there are even more questions and more risk to the world. So it's one thing for the New York Times and Washington Post of the world to mock Mike Pompeo for a theory that was based on science. It's another thing for us to continue to hide our heads in the sand and play politics with this important issue. We can't let that happen. We've got to figure out how this came to be, and we have to stop the Chinese Communist Party from doing the kind of things that could next time kill not 3 million, but 30 million.
Secretary, last one for today. I've got a book out called Breaking the News, which has done quite well. And in the book, I theorize that it's more than just the Trump hatred that's driving some of these newsrooms to really censor what is either legitimate debate, if not outright true statements and true science. Part of it, it's not just the Trump hatred, which is, of course, prominent, but they either protecting existing or future business in China. Any thoughts on that theory?
Yes, it's of course true. These media organizations have an intense interest in not making the Chinese Communist Party mad because they see an audience of 1.4 billion people, and they see markets that are important to them, and they see a Chinese Communist Party that is willing to punish them if they don't conform to the Chinese leadership objectives. So whether it is Google or Facebook or the others who all have at one time or another simply bowed down to the Chinese Communist Party, it is because the Chinese Communist Party presents a business risk to them, and they're much more concerned about their bottom line than they are preserving security here in America. It's something that I worked on. I made incremental progress to convince business leaders that it was the right thing to do to protect America and preserve our freedoms. There's an awful long way more to go because these folks have a worldview that has accepted Chinese propaganda over the words of American leaders who were simply doing their jobs and using science to protect the world.
Such an important message. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, give me that website again for your new PAC.
Yes, sir. It's CAVPAC.com.
Great. Thank you. And come back whenever you like.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good day. Yes, sir. So